So here is some flour, right? Like wheat flour. And here is water. And admittedly, like, water is the archetypal water. Dirt, I would say, is the archetypal earth element. Instead of using dirt, the concept works well enough with flour. If you mix cement or putty, this really works as well. Anyway, so let's start off firstly with just water. So like a good amount of water, right? Now, if I add a spoon and I spoon a very small amount of flour into it, and then I mix it up. I probably should have picked something a little bit less lumpy. Hang on, maybe let me get a... Okay, excuse that, we're kind of in a new location just because I need to be able to use electricity. So I put a tiny bit of flour in it, and yeah, these electric mixers are really good for anything. This is still like a liquid, right? This is still pretty much, besides all the, excuse the bubbles, it's pretty much like a liquid, yeah? Now what happens if we add more flour to it? It's still like, the bubbles are kind of making it hard to see. It's still a liquid. It's still liquidy. It's a little tiny bit thicker. If I heated this, it would get really thick. And the more flour I put in, the thicker it'll slowly start to become, right? So this is still, I mean, it's still a liquid. Honestly, it's not that thick, right? But it's thicker than water, we would assume, right? Yeah, like it's starting to become kind of, it's got a little something to it. If I keep putting more... Okay, now this has essentially become pancake batter. Do you see that? See how the addition of a solid substance to liquid has now, it just gets thicker and thicker and thicker. And what happens if we put even more in? You see how this is starting to become like a semi-solid now? It's becoming more like special kinds of bread dough. You know, like a thinner form of dough that you would probably ferment. You see that? Just with the addition of flour, it has started to become thicker, right? We'll add more. See, this is now it's now essentially, it is just, I mean, it's dough, you know. It's become essentially a solid object. This is now a solid object that is still movable. And if I were to heat it and make bread out of it, this, we could say it's a tangible, solid object, right? It's a physical material object. It's not liquid. It's not a liquid state anymore, right? And if as I said, if I heated it, it would turn hard, right? It'd become a hard piece of bread, and that would be getting all the moisture out of it. What happens if I do the opposite? I take some of it. I've got it here, and then what happens if I put some water in there and start to mix it in the water? You see the water's starting to become like, it's similar to when we first started, right? It's now becoming like a porridge. We have made water. We've made bread water, essentially, or dough water. It's a liquid, and the more water I put in there, the more of a liquid state it starts to become, right? As opposed to our dough. So a sauce, like a glaze, essence, and oil, these are all like the same things. You know, a tea, syrup. Everything's the exact same thing, just in different states. The entire world is made out of plastic. All these things are the same essentially, except like how thick is it? How much, how much water or earth does it have? You can see this is all, because I'm holding it with wet hands, it's all moist. Okay, look at that. It's very hot. Ooh, you can see the difference because that was on this dirty ass baking paper with all this oil on it. It's nice and crispy and it looks very tasty. And this side has not had much oil on it, so it looks pretty yeah. So I guess oil your pastry, I guess, if you want to make it look good. But anyway, this is not meant to be a profession. This is literally I just mixed flour and water and cooked it to show you that. Do you remember when we had that ball of dough? Could mold it. This I cannot mold. It is this hard. It's like you have brick mortar, right? So you have, which is like rock slop. You have sand and what do you call it, like cement or mortar or whatever, and I think you make mortar out of that, right? And then it's like it's depending on how much water you put in, it's really sloppy, right? And then you can put it on bricks and it hardens into something that eventually you cannot move. This is what this has done because of the application of heat, which is simply just, I mean, it's transformed some things, but it's also dried out most of the water. This I probably heated for a little while. Of course, this isn't like, it doesn't have any baking soda, or it wasn't fermented, so it doesn't really have much of a, though we do have a little bit of an air, see that, like air bubble. It just tastes pretty much like bland, crunchy. It's not too bad, admittedly. Point being, this isn't a cooking video. This is to show you that this is now like earth element, right? This is solid. This is a physical material thing, right? This is, it's got a little bit of give. It's got a little bit of give, but it's pretty solid. Yeah. So in here, tiny bit soft because it has a little bit of moisture in it, you could say. It's kind of got like a spongy texture. That's just how bread works, right? But the point being, that's not too bad. Point being is that it is now a physical material thing. We first started with water. I don't start with water when making dough, but the point was to have water and slowly add the flour, make it thicker and thicker and thicker, and then eventually make a dough out of it, and then make it into its hard state. Now, if I cook this more, it'd be like a hardtack biscuit, kind of like this, where it would survive, like a preserved thing, It's got like pretty much no moisture in it. So, unless like outside moisture got into it and, corroded and such, then it wouldn't decay. And the more we heat it, the more heat you apply to it or let it condense through cold, the more physical it becomes, more of the earth element. So anyway, so one final point is on things like ammonia, alcohol, like hydrochloric, sulfuric, nitric acid, all these kinds of like mineral or liquid acids. These liquids are volatile liquids. Gasoline is another one of them. These are the distilled volatile spiritual liquid, or condensed gas, you could say, almost. Well, not quite a condensed gas, because you can have a condensed gas into a liquid form, like a butane gas, right? But they are maybe we'll say a liquid that can become a gas. It's very volatile, and then it becomes liquid again. So this would be in a higher state than common water. Well, something like a butane is in a higher state than that, than like alcohol or gasoline, right? Because it pretty much is a gas. Of course, you can, as I said, you can condense a gas into water through pressure and such. distillation and all that. But point being is that I just showed you water going to an earth element, or the earth element going to water, because of course I could take that bread and I could mix it with water, and I could powderize it and mix it with water, and turn it back into like a liquid, like a slurry, like a porridge or something. We could also then, I guess, fermenting it technically would make it spiritual and living and volatile, right? So it's like almost like life exists within the higher, the air and the fire elements. So that's an interesting way to think about it. Anyway, it's about enough. Goodbye.